Welcome back, everyone, to Gateway Tailgate, your St. Louis sports fan podcast. I am Sean Sproat. That is Adam Freeman. How are you, Adam?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. And, of course, that is also Kenny Hudden. How are you, Kenny?
Well, my knees hurt, my back hurts. I walked 9 holes, and my Apple Watch here tells me I walked over 6 miles. So,
Kenny, that's called getting old.
yeah, well, there is that.
And it rained. I could have told you it was going to rain early last night. And probably predicted the time.
Completely self-induced, but sounds like a great time. How'd you shoot? Is the main thing.
47, so a net 37, so not terrible for me.
Okay. Yep.
We lost, but we lost because Charlie and I both duffed shots on our final hole.
Well, them's the breaks.
They
breaks
are.
For this show today, though, I feel like we do have a wonderful show. It's the first of the year without all 4 sports going on in the city, so if you do want your Blues fix, because we're not really going to talk about it this episode, if you do want your Blues fix, go back, make sure you listen to or watch our last episode where we broke down the Blues exit from the playoffs in Game 7 against the Winnipeg Jets. But, of course, you do that. Watch and listen today, because we're going to be talking about the Cardinals channeling their inner LeBron James, taking his talents to South Beach with not 6, not 7, not 8, but 9 wins in a row. The Battlehawks, much like Will Ferrell and Old School, have some streaking of their own, and we'll round out the show with some City Open Cup recap and their loss to, and I think I'm pronouncing this right, San Diego, which unfortunately scholars maintain the translation was lost hundreds of years ago. So I don't know where the line was set at, but the Will Ferrell references, I hope you hammered the over.
Yes.
Oh. Speaking of scholars, Kenny, how about you regale us with some This Week in St. Louis sports history?
See, you tried to do that and think I wasn't prepared, but I got it this week, jerk.
Shocked.
Printed it off 5 minutes ago.
No, it's on my phone. May 13th, 1958, Stan Musial becomes the 8th player in Major League Baseball history with 3,000 career hits. Fun fact for you guys, Stan Musial hit the same amount of hits right side of the plate as he did left side of the plate.
Incredible. I'm also was kind of looking at Adam when you said that to see if that was going to be part of his trivia that he's about to hit us with.
Playing my trivia according. So that leads us into the next This Week in St. Louis sports. May 16th, 1997, Gary Gaetti records his 2,000th career hit with the Cardinals. Did you guys know that he was from Centralia? I had no idea.
In Illinois, right?
That's where Centralia is, yeah.
There's a Centralia in Missouri.
Is there?
Richard? Yeah. Exit 133 off of Highway 70.
Yeah, everybody knows that, Adam.
It's like I lived in Columbia, and it's right
Oh, you're right. It is. Yep. Anyway, so that takes us into this week's trivia, St. Louis sports trivia. All right, you guys ready? Gary Gaetti was a part of this phenomenon, is what I'm going to call it. It is the only time that this has ever happened in Major League history.
He hit the cycle twice in one game.
That would be incredible. 8 at-bats.
I believe Gary Gaetti was on base for both of Fernando Tatis's grand slams in the same inning.
That's very possible. Very possible. But that is not it. That is not it. When he played for the Minnesota Twins on July 17th, 1990 against the Boston Red Sox, Gary Gaetti, Al Newman, and Kent, I'm going to say it's Hrbek, Hrbek, for the first and only time in Major League history, they turned 2 triple plays in one game. And Gary Gaetti started it both times. That's what I said. When I saw that, I was like, that's interesting. Not that I would think that you would get very many opportunities for 2 triple plays in a game, but to be able to be the same person that starts it is pretty cool.
I mean, the odds are probably a little better than hitting for the cycle twice. I don't know why I said that.
Hitting for the cycle twice, again, has got to be a record. I'm not totally sure. We'll check the record books on that one. But yeah, I think it is.
That is fascinating, though, because I would love to know how many triple plays are actually turned in Major League Baseball each year. Adam's going to ChatGPT currently, so I'm going to fill in the gap of...
On average, there are just over 5 triple plays per year. Since 1876, a total of 739 triple plays.
And he had
2
in one game.
2 in one game by the same 3 players.
That's pretty cool.
Also, Gary Gaetti, I believe, had 6 20-home run seasons, and 3, I believe, were 30-home run seasons. I didn't realize,
he doesn't get thrown out a lot.
No, really. And he didn't play for the Cardinals very often. He had an interesting draft. I learned a lot about Gary Gaetti today, boys. He had an interesting draft history. He was drafted by the Cardinals, the White Sox, and then finally the Twins. because of how the draft worked back in the 80s or whatever. You could be drafted in like I forgot what it was, like a sub draft, and then you could do that twice, and then you got drafted in the real draft if you wanted to do it. It's kind of interesting.
The more you know.
Anyways, let's go into St. Louis sports for the week, and let's lead it off with who truly is the hottest team in St. Louis right now. 9 straight wins. That's right, 9 after tonight's win against the Philadelphia Phillies. The Cardinals swept the Pirates Monday through Wednesday this week, and then Friday to Sunday they swept the Nationals. They also took the last 2 games against the Mets last week, the week before. So they are on a roll right now, and it has pulled them to within currently 1/2 game of the Cubs, who are in first place. But they believe the Cubs were winning in the top of the 9th, so that will move back to 1 game. Are we turning the corner with this team?
I mean, are we really gonna? Are we gonna say they're turning the corner, sweeping the Pirates and the Nationals included in that? Like, there is progress, but are we gonna call it definitive progress? I mean, I don't know where I stand on that.
I mean, you play your schedule. That's the thing. I mean, you could say the same thing about the Blues. I mean, the Blues did beat up on some pretty easy teams during their winning streak.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to say that they kind of have turned a corner. I mean, 9 wins in a row is nothing to shake a stick at. I think the next few series are probably really going to be telling. The next 2 games against the Phillies, then you go to the Royals. The Royals are a decent team. Tigers, Diamondbacks, like that's. I think we're going to find out a lot about this team come the end of May. But I'd be 3 games above 500 right now. 9 wins in a row, game and a half back of the Cubs. I mean, if they just stay on any type of 500 pace, I think they are going to be in contention for the division. So yeah, I think that they kind of have turned the proverbial corner compared to where they were.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I think too is that they're starting to get better. In their last 6 games, they have 2 shutouts. They've allowed 6 runs total, and that was against Pittsburgh. 2 games against Pittsburgh, and then the 3 against Washington, and then today against Philly. So that's pretty good. I truly think though that the biggest part of it is their pitching. So hitting is definitely there. I mean, Wilson Contreras, I think he's been on base for the past 24 games. In the month of May, he's hitting like 340. He's got 3 home runs and 11 RBIs. So hitting's there. We get Ivan Herrera back, and its first real game back, he gets a home run.
I was going to say, he hit a home run tonight.
Yep.
Yeah, so having him back in the lineup makes a big difference for us. But it's really been the pitching. I mean, and really the key has been the bullpen. It's not that the hitting has gone anywhere. It's not that the starting pitching is really any different than it was before. Our starting pitchers are still right around that mid-3 ERA, and that's perfect for, you figure 5 or 6 innings, they allow 2 runs. But when you get guys like Kyle Leahy, who has a 1 ERA, Phil Maton has a 3.38, but he's been lights out in the 8th inning in the last, let's call it 2 or 3 weeks. And really the biggest one is Steven Matz. Yep. He has found a place in the bullpen. And what I hope is that he's found a place in the bullpen on another team here soon. And we can ditch that contract. But currently this year, he's got 26 innings pitched, 22 Ks in those 26 innings, and he's got a 1.35 ERA. You can't ask for much more. And you have Matthew Liberatore, who's our starting left-handed pitcher. He's pitched really well so far this year. You're starting to get a little bit better outings from JoJo Romero and John King. I mean, the bullpen has been the issue really all the way up until these last 9 games, and now the bullpen is starting to click.
Yeah, and the starting pitching has been excellent. I mean, let's give our flowers to Eric Fetty, who had a complete game the other day, and then we dogged on him for I think like 2 episodes straight, but Miles Michaelis has actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think I forgot what the exact.
I know you're skeptical, Kenny. I believe it. I swear it's happened. He looks, last 3 games he's got a 2.3 ERA.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stat real quick. So other than the game, hold on, where was it? The game against Boston, right? He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 starts. In those 7 starts, he has given up 11 runs. Other than the game against Boston, in which he gave up 9. So 7 of 8 starts, he has given up 11 runs. I'll take that all day long. I mean, he's not the greatest by any means. He had a bad stretch where he had the game against Philly and the game against the Mets right after Boston, and they were not pretty. But he's holding his own, and really that's all we need.
Ultimately, my problem with Miles Michaelis is not that he's kind of turned it around, is that I believe he is probably what's blocking the spot of McGreevy. And McGreevy coming up and doing what he did, that got me excited. And I know we kind of talked about it in a roundabout way, what are the Cardinals? Are they rebuilding? Are they letting the youth play? Or are they just a sinking ship going nowhere? Hopefully they found some direction, but at this point, I'm just like, let the kids play. So, like, I don't know. It's really kind of hard for me, too, because obviously I've been pretty in depth with the NHL playoffs. Like, the playoffs are on. We're missing Vegas and the Oilers right now. Sorry, boys.
Yeah. And Kenny, I agree. I don't disagree that Michaelis is holding the spot, but I would also say that Fetty's holding the spot too. And I think it was.
But who's the bigger burden ultimately? It's Miles Michaelis and his contract.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and I don't like being that guy. Like, I really
no,
don't.
You're right.
Because the contract is not my money. I didn't sign Miles Michaelis, so I don't get wrapped up in it. But like when you look at it, push comes to shove, Michaelis is holding us back.
Yeah, and the bigger part of that is he's been holding us back for really 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because they should never have extended him at that point. Like he was extended at a point to be able to do it. And the other hard part becomes is that even if this team is competing, I lose faith that if we have any sort of chance that we're going to trade at the trade deadline, we should trade Helsley. Yeah. Like I will stay by that. Again, I don't care if they're on pace to win 90 or lose 90. We are not re-signing Ryan Helsley. So you have to trade him.
I will agree with you with a caveat. I think if you head into the All-Star break as the number one in the Central and you got a couple games padded, you got to keep him.
I mean, I don't know. I really don't. And I don't disagree. I think it needs to be a big lead. So I think the All-Star game is the second weekend of July. I don't think 2 games is enough. I think it has to be 5 or 6. I think you have to be running away with it.
That's fair.
But then on the other side of that is you have to go out and find somebody. You have to go find a starting pitcher. We cannot go into the playoffs with Sonny Gray as our number 1 and Andre Palante as our number 2. I mean, that's not going to happen. And I don't trust anybody else. I don't care how well Liberatore, Fetty, or Michaelis are pitching. I don't know if I trust anybody else to be a starter. And I don't trust Palante to be a starting pitcher for Game 2. Can Sonny Gray pitch all 5?
I mean, that would be really far out in front of our skis. Right now.
Yeah, that's exactly 100%. What I was going to say. I think we're looking a little far ahead here. I agree with trading Helsley. I think 5 games is the mark at the trade deadline. Yeah. But to go back to Michaelis, because we love kind of picking on him a little bit, and I'm going to continue to do it. The one downside over the first 8 games that he's pitched so far, he has only gone through 39.1 innings, which is an average of 4.87 innings a game. Not really what you want from, like, he's probably your 3rd starter at this point. That's the least amount of all 5 of the starting pitchers so far. Not great, but
gotta
really
pump those numbers up.
Rookie numbers. Those are really good last 3 games. So let's give him props for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have a big week this week. They have the Phillies for 2 more, and then they play in Kansas City on the weekend. So we'll learn a lot this week to see exactly where they're at. But so far, 9 straight wins. Also, the Gruden effect. Guys, we should have mentioned that off the top. The John Gruden effect. They started winning when they met John Gruden.
Is that what we're chalking it up to?
Nope, we're going to jump into the Battlehawks. We're going to the Battlehawks. Battlehawks 3 straight wins. They won on Saturday against the Memphis Showboats. I swear to you guys, I thought it was the Riverboats all day long. Because that made more sense. Showboat, Riverboat, whatever.
Riverboats is a better name.
I would have thought so. And I think it was in front of a whole 5 people. Or no, wait, there was at home. It wasn't at Memphis, so I'll give us the Battle Dome sells out, so we're good.
No, it was in Memphis.
It wasn't? Man.
I was not working the concession stand, so it was.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were working the concession stand this weekend. Anyways, they won 19-9 against the Memphis Showboats. Max Duggan had another solid outing. Another game in which he threw for, I believe, 150 plus and ran for 70 or 50 plus rushing yards. That's the 3rd game in a row. So we'll take that all day long. Only 1 interception, so that's awesome. But really the standout one for this one was the defense. The defense was pretty much lights out. They had 1 forced fumble. I believe they had 7 tackles for a loss, 1 sack, a couple pass breakups. So overall, the defense is pretty good, and that is what they need. This team will win with defense. They have allowed the 2nd fewest points in the entire UFL this year with 114. And they've scored, I believe, a third fewest, I think was what I saw, something like that, out of 10.
That's correct. So, about 150 points.
Yeah. So they need the defense to be strong to be able to do it. And then they have a weird schedule coming up. They play at home, and then technically they play on the road, but at home because San Antonio gave up the home game. Welcome to the UFL, boys.
Oh,
That
okay.
I did not know that. Okay.
that is true. I am looking at their schedule right now. May 23rd at the San Antonio Brahmas at the Dome at America's Center.
Okay.
All righty
Yeah.
then.
Well, I mean, this team feels like they've kind of figured out the formula, right? Which, I mean, perfect timing considering we've talked about it before. This is only a 10-game season, so they're kind of hitting their stride at the right time. Do we believe in Duggan going forward?
Yeah, I do. I think he works well with the offense. Obviously, Manny Wilkins has the run threat, which I like. But I would have to see Wilkins before he got hurt. But he couldn't have been averaging much more than 57 rushing yards. So, I mean, like if you get that 45 to 60, you're not going to be mad. Jacob Saylor's had a much better game. I don't have his exact numbers in front of me, but he was
11
noticeable.
for 36.
Thank you. Was that just rushing? Because I thought he had a big receiving. Yeah.
2 for 25. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a big receiving that I knew I saw. So I think the offense can work. What I will say though is I do have a question. Did anybody watch the game besides me?
I did not.
I saw like 2 or 3 highlights. That's about it.
Okay, so you guys missed the super challenge on the block in the back.
Yeah,
I heard about it, but I did not see it.
Okay, so at the end of the game, Battlehawks got the ball back. Guy had a pretty nice return. Showboats throws super challenge. I'm not a tinfoil wearing conspiracy theorist.
No, Adam has that covered for the group.
That's all me.
The call on the field was obviously they challenged that it was there. From all the replays, it looked like it was there. Do we think there's a UFL conspiracy to get the Battlehawks in to the championship game?
I do. I really do. And I don't think that it is necessarily a full-blown effort that, hey, this has to happen. But I think that there's a little bit of something behind it. Because if it doesn't, there's still going to be 20,000 people that pack the Dome for the championship game. But if the Battlehawks are there, that game might sell out at like 50,000 people. If there's a legit chance that happens.
There are few things guaranteed in life. Death, taxes, the NBA rigging,
and WWE scripts. We all know.
Yeah, the NBA digging, sending Luka Doncic to LA and rigging that, and then getting the #1 pick back to Dallas, and the UFL trying to get the St. Louis Battlehawks into the final. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm pretty much the voice of reason when it comes to that on this podcast. And yes, I firmly believe the UFL is trying to get the St. Louis Battlehawks to the championship game.
If anybody is wondering what Sean is talking about, there is a whole episode of our previous podcast, Ride the Pine, where Adam and I discuss Bigfoot, aliens. I think there was something else, dude, wasn't there?
On the last show on Ride the Pine, that was like our most watched episode. We had
it was.
comments on that episode. Some of the comments and some of the things I was seeing for the next like 2 weeks after that was like, I gotta log off. I can't do this anymore.
Dude, my Twitter timeline is an absolute shit show because of that stuff.
I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean that has to be there, and it'll be very interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out for them. But yeah, Kenny, I think it's there. And besides, The Rock's behind it. So he's going to show up for that. I mean, he doesn't show up for anything else, but he'll show up for that UFL championship game.
You know what I will say about this too? Well, there's two things. We didn't mention Rodrigo Blankenship is 16 for 16. And he's not just hitting close field goals. He's hitting long field goals. I think he hit one for 53. How is that kid not in the NFL?
It's the same. Yeah.
For as many kickers as we watch on a Sunday who miss field goal after field goal and get cut, and then they sign some random guy, like how is that guy not in the NFL?
He'll get another call back up.
I mean, it's just like Mevis. Mevis has been pretty good in the UFL.
Yeah, I get it. And number two is The Rock's got to talk about the UFL more. He was on Pat McAfee 2 weeks ago. I wanted to talk about this couple weeks ago. He was on Pat McAfee for 40 minutes, did not mention the UFL once. I want the UFL to succeed because I want football in my town. Brody, my 2-year-old, loves watching football. He will yell cacaw at me. And to me, that's awesome, right? We get football all year round. Jess is a Chiefs fan. We're Mizzou people. Now we get the Battlehawks in the spring. I want it to succeed.
Agreed. Yeah, I do think The Rock knows that it's a sinking ship, though. I don't think if he wanted it to succeed and thought that it was going to succeed, he would have promoted it. That's what The Rock does. The Rock is a promoter just by trade. If he wanted to, he would have.
I really do think that if the UFL goes under, I think that the NFL will be in St. Louis within 5 years.
And I think that would be a mistake. But anyway, that is a topic for another day. Let's move on to our next topic, Adam.
Speaking of mistakes, we all watched the St. Louis City soccer game on Saturday.
Perfect.
Nah, not your boy.
Yeah, Kenny was busy maybe at the Battlehawks game. I'm not really sure where he was at. But St. Louis City had let's call it an up and down week. It started up. They beat a team that, I mean, they should have beat 2-0 in Union Omaha in the U.S. Open Cup on Wednesday. And then they lost 2-0 against the San Diego, I don't know what their name is, the Whales, maybe? Yeah. But they lost, and it was, honestly, it was a bad last, in my opinion, 60 minutes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
They got a goal?
They did. Kyle Hebert scored.
Oh, yeah, I remember it.
Yep.
Your boy.
Yeah.
My boy.
Sean, it's yours. Go.
All right, so I took a lot of notes. So I'm just going to kind of skim through. I'm going to bounce around a little bit. Deal with me. Interrupt me at any time if you want to talk about any of the points here. But I'm going to start with some good. There's not a lot, but there is some. We won an Open Cup game. Open Cup is really important to the city of St. Louis. We've won it, I think, 11 times prior as a city. Really important. We advanced. That's what matters. Klaus got a goal. He's on the score sheet against Omaha. And at this point, every time he scores, we should probably be celebrating because we don't know the next time it's going to happen. Zielinski gets his first start and gets a banger of a goal, even though I will admit that the keeper kind of fluffed that one a little bit. But draft pick gets his first goal. That should be celebrated. That's it. That's the good for the Open Cup game. Yeah, Kenny.
I was going to make a joke about Zelensky in Ukraine. Never mind.
All right. So some good for the San Diego game. I thought Watts played a really great first half. Probably his best in a city shirt. He connected well, he defended well, and he got into really dangerous areas. Ostrak had a really good outing, specifically early in the second half. He still remains the only starter that's willing to take guys on 1v1. Not as sexy as that sounds. I also liked what I saw from Jean de Silva when he was subbed on in both games. He's dynamic. He immediately gives us something we don't have, which is movement off the ball and like purpose with the ball, which, like I just said, Ostrak's really the only other person that does that. And it was great to see Jaden Reed back. He played terribly when he was subbed on, but, I mean, it's kind of understandable considering the injury he had and the time that he missed, and it's just really good to see him back in the lineup. Now the bat. We're going to start with the Open Cup. I'm going to go ahead and just read this verbatim because these are the thoughts that I had immediately while watching. The amount of empty seats is inexcusable. All this talk for the past couple of years from supporter groups about boycotting Leagues Cup because of MLS's treatment of the Open Cup, yet the supporter section was half full at best. All of these teams of all of these cities, we should probably be supporting the Open Cup the most for literally what I just said, the 11 championships. I don't want to hear excuses anymore. I'm seeing it all over online. I don't care that it was a weeknight. We've sold out Wednesday night regular season games for the last 2 years. It's unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. If you are a supporter group member and you didn't go to the Open Cup game, you shouldn't be a supporter group member anymore. Turn your badge in. To the play on the field. We gave up too much of the ball against Omaha. There were times in that match where we couldn't even touch the ball, especially in the second half. And just to remind you, Omaha is in USL 1, which is below the USL Championship League, which is below MLS. They are 2 tiers down.
Let's not forget that we lost to them.
Correct. Yeah. So they're having a really bad year. By the way, they've in their regular season, they've scored 3 goals in one game. And I mean, they've scored 3 goals the entire season. 3 of those goals came in one game. And we couldn't touch the ball in the second half. If we play that same way against Minnesota in the next round, we will lose by no less than 3 goals. Probably 4. And now the home match against San Diego. Yarrow made 2 mistakes. Both resulted in goals. Frankly, he shouldn't have been on the field that late in the game anyway because it was 0-0. We should have prioritized the attack with the subs, but we didn't.
Hold on, can I stop you there? Because I have a comment about it. The second goal. What the hell was he doing?
I don't know.
He literally just watched it go in the net, and I'm like, what did he stop the ball? You could use any of your body except your hands. Put them behind your back, stand in front of it. It wasn't that hard of a shot. Stop the ball. But no, we're just going to let it roll into the net, basically.
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for you, Adam. I really do. Subbing your number 9 out when you're tied 0-0 at home with 15 minutes to go is one of the dumbest things I've seen in a long time, probably since the last time Olaf did that. And then Hebert continues to be a complete liability when trying to build out of the back. Yes, I know he scored a goal. I'm still going to say this. And it's forcing us to be one-dimensional, which is so easily defended, teams aren't breaking a sweat doing so. Why is Ben Lunt time-wasting on goal kicks when it's 0-0 in the 70th minute at home? We haven't really talked about it, and not much has been written about it, but we need to finally address that Toyshirt has just not been good. Every touch in the offensive third takes him away from the goal, and he makes scoring harder on himself with more difficult angles on his shots. And I'll preface this next point by saying that I don't know his situation. I genuinely wish the best for him and his wife, but we can't continue to operate and expect to be competitive when our best player takes up a designated player spot while being absent for personal reasons. That one is kind of harsh, and I do apologize for that because that does feel mean. But we need him on the field. Lastly, with every passing minute, I lose more and more faith in the ability that Olof Mellberg can actually coach this team. I understand the injuries, the most important injuries in the league, the most injuries in the league, and honestly, it's not even close. Maybe the next one is LA Galaxy. We haven't won in 8 games, excluding Open Cup, and I'm not seeing anything from this team that says players returning from injury will fix this, and I'm going to go ahead and be on record and say that if we lose to Kansas City on Wednesday, Olof Mellberg should no longer be the head coach of St. Louis City SC. Exhale.
Wow. Just
5 out of 5, no notes. I mean, the last one is spot on. I don't know, even as being, I'm going to say, a very mid-level soccer. I love watching City. I love watching the MLS. As far as knowledge base goes, I am very mid-level when it comes to all of that stuff. I can pick out stuff and I can kind of assume things. He is not good. And I don't know, like you said, was subbing out your number 9 at that position. I would ask about all of his subs. I mean, every single one seems to come at the wrong time, and it's the wrong person, and you're taking the wrong person off the field. That doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know how many center backs that he can play at one time, but he's going to try to play 11 in one game.
Just really quickly on the Klaus sub, he brought in the correct players. He brought in, I think it might have been Celio and Silva.
Celio wasn't until late, though. Celio wasn't until like the 85th minute.
Okay, I can't remember who it was at that point. I should have had that written down. But I remember thinking the incoming subs were good. But bringing him off didn't make it. It was Bescher. That's who it was. Bescher was the only one. Was the other one. So it doesn't make sense to bring him off. You're 0-0 at home. You haven't won, and at that point in 7 games, take off one of your center backs. Take off Yarrow. Go to a 3 in the back system. Push Hebert over, and let's go for it. Let's try and get 3 points. And at that point, you're settling. You're telling me by subbing João Klaus off. I know I just talked about that. His goal scoring has not been up to par by any stretch of the imagination, but he still remains your biggest goal threat. No one else has that ability on the team at the current moment, and you sub him off. That tells me that you're okay with a point at home. That's not okay to me.
I do have one thing that I found interesting. And it wasn't my notes. This is from Matt Baker. City this week was 11th in the MLS in XG, and they took the 7th most shots. The crazy stat that he posted was Toyshirt, Betcher, and Hartle. They've combined for 12 goals last year in the last 10 games. This year, their XG is 90. I don't know what that means. John, fill me in on that one. And they are better this year than they were last year. They're just not putting up the shot.
That's because they're in my opinion, just from the eye test, I don't know what the numbers say. I feel like they are taking less high percentage chances.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, the lone exception to that is probably Bescher, who has missed some absolute sitters
so
far this season, which why I was having a discussion with somebody the other day that was complaining why he isn't starting. And I was like, well, when he is starting, he's not putting the ball in the back of the net, and he's getting better chances than Klaus, but he's hitting these little bunny taps to the keeper, and there's only so long you can deal with that. You've got to put the ball in the back of the net. Klaus gives you a better chance at that.
Yeah, and that was like, as soon as he said that, I'm like, the exact point that I could think of is they're just not shooting. They're all getting the ball and going away from the net. Like, they're coming back the opposite direction every single time, and then they're trying to get the cross or trying to do some sort of float to the post and do it, or they're trying to get a run on the short side and they have nowhere to go. It's just super frustrating. And so I'll lead with this question. Whether we wrap it up after this part, I don't know. But Sean, here's my question to you. You're the soccer guy of the group. The Cardinals, they made the playoffs 3 years ago, and it took basically 2 years of struggles for the Cardinals' attendance to tank. There was a picture after the second goal of the mass exodus from that stadium. How long does it take that we're now a year and a half before City starts having these issues too? And what does that do? And where do we go from?
First off, can you imagine if I wasn't the soccer guy of the group and I just went on that rant? Oh, I thought when you sent this over, I thought about this for a little bit, and it's a good question, and I think of it first. You got to look around the league and kind of look at like similarities or someone that you can kind of compare St. Louis and its fans to, is specifically like the expansion teams, and it's harder to do than you would think. I kind of looked around and I was thinking maybe like, okay, Orlando, they don't have they kind of dropped off from attendance. But they weren't very good whenever they came into the league, kind of like St. Louis was last year and this year. But they were also kind of coasting on the fact that they had Kaká and then Nani, so they had former Real Madrid and Manchester United stars. And St. Louis is not a market that's ever going to do that. Orlando's a theme park town; they want their big attractions, so it's like that's. I don't know if that really counts. I kind of looked at Atlanta. Atlanta had a really good start to the year, sold out the Benz, and then they won it in their second year, so they had success just like St. Louis did in the first year. But then they completely tanked off. But to their credit, the Benz is still kind of rocking, even through some terrible moments. With some exceptions, there's been some games where people haven't shown Open Cup, but the one that kind of like. And I am getting. This is all leading to a point. I promise. The one that kind of like makes sense to me as far as comparison is probably Cincinnati. Cincinnati has had incredible crowds, and they show up, and good and bad they show up. And I think people forget how terrible Cincinnati was for the first 4 years of that franchise. Epically bad. So much so that one of my favorite MLS stats over the last few years is that over a 2-year period, the U.S. men's national team won more games in Cincinnati than Cincinnati won.
That's awesome.
That team was horrible. And you know what? They've turned it around, and they're really good, and the fans have stuck through it. I think St. Louis is closer to the Cincinnati line than they are to the Orlando line. It's going to take a lot for fans to go away. However, I do think that is already starting. Just anecdotally, from the multiple text messages that I have from season ticket holders who are about to be former season ticket holders, it is already happening. I think the secondary market's going to make up for that for some time, but let's just say if we're having this conversation by this time next year, I think you are going to start seeing empty seats in Energizer Park. Not many. Not going to be like an Orlando in some years, or Nashville where they built that 30,000 seat stadium and they can't even get 17,000 people to show up to the games. That's why they painted all of their seats different colors so it looks like fans are there when they're not. But
which is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, good on them. I mean, whatever. But yeah, I think we are closer to a Cincinnati. St. Louis fans like to tout that they are the best fans in baseball. I've already seen best fans in MLS. Some local podcasts have been proclaiming that. I think that's very self-righteous. I understand the history that we have with the game and everything, but there is a point where we will break, and I think we're probably about a year off from that.
And that's what I was thinking too. Like I think that the newness will keep it around for a while, but I also think if this team continues to fall the way that they are, there's going to be some drastic changes that are going to have to be made to this team. I mean, one being that if you buy tickets from the club, those prices are going to have to drop.
Yes.
Like I don't care what they say, it's going to have to drop. The resale market is already starting to drop. I know that's happening for a fact. But if they have finish at the bottom like they're at right now, it's going to be really tough. And then, especially if you don't make changes, like that's where it's going to have to change. And it sounds like Lutz is kind of starting to take the lead on that and take blame, which he should. I mean, he has created this team and he has made the changes to this team, and it has not worked out well. So I think he's starting to realize that. But I also think that you have to start getting the voices at the top. They bring in the dude from Man City, and nobody, I don't even think he actually has an office. I think they just brought him in as like the dog and pony show to see what would happen and go from there. But
Man City Group. He wasn't with Man City. He was with Man City Group. Caveat
cool.
there. Yeah.
Man City is what you said, and that's all I heard. I think they're good.
To the front office's point, they are willing to make changes when changes are needed. And when you are a new franchise like that, once the shine kind of wears off, that's what you have to sell your fans. You have to sell your fans that you are willing to spend to get better and to improve the team. I do think that they are willing to do that to an extent. And I kind of compared them to the fan base to Cincinnati earlier. The exception to that is Cincinnati. They didn't play in a soccer-specific stadium when they first joined the league. They were playing at like Nippert, and then they got there. So through all that losing, they had the new stadium to look forward to. There was something on the horizon. St. Louis doesn't have that, so
Right.
we have to build that anticipation and keep butts in seats or keep people in the stadium some other way. And you do that as a front office by signing interesting names and signing like young players that we can root for through the system. And then when they finally make like a Jaden Reed, I was just talking about, he was terrible, but I was excited to see him because he's a young player who has something potential for the future. If you're not doing a combination of those, and we have nothing to look forward to, which means fans are going to leave.
Yeah, and I would throw Makai Joyner into that too.
Yeah, for sure. Which, by the way, they were only allowed to play him for 5 games, and they burned that. And he had
Right. Nailed it. Now we're done. Cool.
Yeah.
Kenny, anything to add?
No, I'm just glad somebody finally recognized that Olaf might not be the answer with the call for that. Sean, I can't wait for Adam to tag all the supporter clubs in the short that will come from your rant about the supporter.
That's going to be awesome.
I am like Jon Snow standing in front of the Bolton's army. I'm ready to do battle with you, sir. Let's go.
And it's a great point, though.
Thank you.
I mean, it's so true. Like, and that was, I think it was Madison that pointed it out. She's like, there's nobody at that game. How come, all of their games always have crowds, and how come there's nobody there? And I go, okay, it is Wednesday night. The weather is iffy, but still, if you're a supporter group, you support the team. Like, and you've been preaching for Open Cup to take precedent, and we're there. We have an opportunity for it to happen, and it's in St. Louis, and you don't show up.
Yeah. And I always preach, like, I don't want to tell you how to be a fan. Like, your fandom is different than mine. Be a fan however you want to be. Like, if you feel like a team has been disloyal to you or have they done something wrong, jump ship. Like, you owe no loyalty to any fan, to any club or any fandom like that. However, if you are going to be that out front and boycott and be so loud online, and you speak for your supporter group, you speak for all of those people, and then you don't show up to the one game that matters to back all of those protests up, that's pathetic. Straight up, that's pathetic. Like, the Open Cup is so freaking important to people who love that sport. Show up.
All right, we'll leave it with that. So this week, the Cardinals have the early week series against Philadelphia in Philadelphia. They already won the first game of that. We talked about that earlier, the 9th game of their winning streak. And then they have Tuesday, Wednesday with the afternoon game and Wednesday. And then they go to the other side of the state for that team that wears blue. They play there Friday through Sunday. I think that'll actually be a really good series. I'm very interested to see where that goes. The Battlehawks have Birmingham at the Battle Dome. I know for a fact that is a home game, correct, Kenny?
Sure.
Cool. That game is at 12 o'clock at the Battle Dome. And then City has 2 games. They are also playing the team from the other side of this. Well, no, Sporting Kansas is in Kansas. But some people don't understand that. They play from the team from the other side of the state. They play Sporting Kansas on Wednesday in the game that Sean mentioned. Should be Olaf's last game if they lose that game, because that will be absolutely embarrassing. And then they play Minnesota on Saturday. We played Minnesota twice in 3-week span.
Yep, Minnesota's a very good team.
We are going to get our asses handed to us in Minnesota. Kenny, blast away with our socials.
Well, first of all, I would like to shout out the Missouri Tiger baseball team, which swept Texas A&M this weekend for, hold on, let me get out my calculator. Their
Do the math real quick.
To third SEC wins of the year. They avoid the worst amount of losses in the SEC by 1.
We're going to Omaha.
Yeah. Start the bus, baby. Also, hey, good work this weekend, St. Louis, with Backlash. I know we don't talk wrestling. Nobody wants to hear it, but getting events like that is big for the city, right? Let's hope we get a nice big event for Busch Stadium in the summer, or use that dome we actually have. So follow us on all the socials, YouTube, all under Gateway Tailgate Podcast.
What about our Instagram?
Still blocked.
Yep.
I got a text today that said, "Hey, found your podcast. Looks great. Are you guys on Instagram?" And I replied with, "No, because Adam's an idiot."
Was that somebody I know?
No.
Okay. That's fine.
All right, good stuff, guys. Let's get out of here. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. We will see you next week, maybe with a new head coach for STL City. We'll find out. All right, guys. Have a good night. Bye.